Something new getting ready to begin. And who did ever thought that all the answers were resting in that silent space within? There within, there within, there within, go within. Hey, blessings. This is Jaya, and I wanted to share a few things about the class Experiments in Consciousness, which is the field guide to living beyond belief, how to ditch the life your mind created and start living the one your soul intended. At the core and foundation, the work of living heaven is about nothing less than awakening into the level of consciousness that the ancient ones that have walked the earth through different times have come in and awakened into that space. And that in these times, it was foretold or prophesied that it would be a time when a lot of people would be coming into that state of consciousness, and these times would be the golden ages. Now, that isn't a given, and it can also not happen. And the other forms of prophecy is that it would be a time of tremendous suffering and droughts and floods and upheaval and humanity not making it because of the choices, because of the overriding technology and the level of choices that were had, and that it went into a self-serving place instead of the higher nature of man. Now, a big part of this was also about women coming in and being part of the higher nature of man, and not to get into any jokes or any of the separation stuff. We don't want to bring that in, but it just was also part of that it was the feminine, spiritual feminine that was rising, not just women. So there's a lot of this potential that's here now. And this book, which came through about 20 years ago, so many stories around it, and people have had direct healings just by reading the book. The letters, here and there that I received, it hasn't gotten out in a big way. And I think that also is part of a few different things. Ultimately, though, having to look at it, that it's part of the plan and the place that we're in now, and that it could have possibly been a lot more graceful, and how many forces are out there that don't really want the awakened man and presence coming into the world, because there's a lot of products to be sold and a lot of ways that are just very much running the way they're running. And so change is never easy, but this is a year numerologically. It's one of the ways that I work with people to bring in information on a soul level, that this is a 5-year, right? 2021 is a 5-year. That is a change year. 2012, for people who were following these things, that were in understandings of different traditions and spiritual traditions, and working in that and exploring those and studying in those. The Mayan calendar, foretold of this 26,000 year cycle that was coinciding with these golden ages, and they were in all different scriptures, these different things across the board, that these times were times of significant transformation for humanity, or potential very, very challenging times to come upon because of the treatment of the environment and ignoring the certain signs and signals and having an agenda that was primarily financial. And again, just being used to doing things a certain way and not wanting to change. So 2012 was also a 5-year. This was the year when there was so much around this time spiritually, kind of like in the year 2000, where it was this, this big thing. Everything was supposed to be shut down. If you remember back, if you're around in those times, and it was this, all this, oh my gosh, the whole grid is going to go and everything's going to just be gone and we're going to go. And that didn't happen. What also didn't happen is this big, big awakening that was coming in 2012. And so if you missed that time, even if you were doing things around that time, there was something that played out in terms of a very strong ceremony, powerful ceremony that happened in Tiwanaku, and that's in South America and in Bolivia, in an ancient site, and Pumapuku right next to it. And that was right around October of 2012 when my partner at the time and I went down. The dance that was initiated in a Kali lineage from India. A lot of lineages have been initiated, sometimes accidentally, and this one, it was just already there. And what the master in that lineage had reflected to me is that this is already there. And so that dance happened in that sacred courtyard of Tiwanaku in 2012, and it was really big. And right at the end, we went to Pumapuku then, and we're completing another part of the ceremony that had come to me in that inner space, and we were completing that. And when we got to the final word that was coming through me, the thunder broke out, and it started hailing. And there were 2 doves that came right in that time. So that was the 2012 happening. And again, very spontaneous, as it does happen in those places of initiation. But on the larger scale, the awakening that was predicted and prophesied to happen just wasn't happening. And it still is seen by some of those that it looks like it's not going to happen. So there's a lot of spiritual things out there, but again, that they're actually producing the full awakened state that was really foretold, that was coming. It's more of a, and to see if this is true, but you can see this too, maybe more of a way to release tension and to relieve stress, and to have a place where you can go to sort of hang out, to get away from a life that really isn't completely, totally aligned with who you are and why you're here. And it becomes more of a marketplace and choosing what's fun, and then that marketplace has to cater to the customer rather than to the dharma of the soul, which is not always that comfortable and not at all usually what the ego would choose to do. So the rest of the presentation on this page is, or the link to the further presentation of this goes deeper in, but this is the primary part of the intention of the class, is this full awakened presence that comes in, that has happened for several students, and then to make it a permanent state, to make it a place that you just live in. And then the next level, and that's also explained in the 3-part video, is the next level is this feminine aspect, that going beyond the being state of consciousness that awakens in the pure being state, then the unique gift, the unique expression begins to come through, and sometimes oftentimes in a very specific way, that it is a gift that you came here to share. So Rumi, the mystic poet, he had a saying, not a saying, he had one of his works that came through him, was not a meme back then, but he had something that came through. It's as if a king has sent you to a foreign land, and you can do 100 things, but if you don't do the thing you were sent to do, it will be as if you did not come. So in these times, many of us have specific assignments, but to really get those assignments and to receive them and to understand that you might not just get to them on your own, because there might be much too much in the way of a personal preference or personal desires, or 10 different programs to choose from this year, which one do I want to do? That when to coming into your soul's essence and your soul's awakening is going beyond and transcending the egoic part of you. It's not renouncing, though. And then the next stage after that is the expression of that gift coming in a way. Now there's room for all different things to happen in different orders and spaces, but that is a general intention and outline and the way that things can happen. And once you start, you really need to complete. So there's a quote in there also in the 3 videos there that goes into that. So I just want to read a little bit of the introduction of the book. So this is an ancient model in the sense that this way of life has been talked about and lived by the mystics, sages, and prophets throughout history. It is a new model because instead of talking about these ancient prophets, instead of merely worshiping spiritual masters who lived in other times and seeing them as chosen and special, when we actually practice what they taught, we find ourselves beginning to have the kinds of experiences they talked about. It is a new model because we live in different times than these mystics did, and with many more possibilities available to us through technology and other means. It is new because this knowledge is now available to just about anyone who chooses to study it, rather than being available only to a select religious initiates and officials or secret sects. It is new because when we experience this life for ourselves, we find it to be so astonishing, so different from anything we could have ever possibly imagined, that a part of us can't help but feel we have discovered something new. How could they not have told us it was this good, we think? But they did. Yet until we begin to experience the innate and intricate web of the universe working its wonders through us, these prophets and spiritual masters will remain enigmas to us, rather than fellow human beings who walked the earth just as we do now. They will remain the chosen few who were fortunate enough to tap into a secret inexhaustible, mystical well, which seemed to inoculate them from the usual ravages and sufferings of a typical human incarnation, instead of ones who consistently practiced spiritual teachings and through their practice came to know their true nature and the true nature of life. And so I'll stop there. There's a little more, but you get the idea that this is coming through in these times and ways, and the spiritual opportunities that are here now. And I'll say also, it's also new because there wasn't the environmental and the earth mother link all the time. There hasn't been the feminine aspect of what was also known in those times, and the ways that things were done in harmony with life in that way. And there can be new, and there are new technologies coming through, and yet if they're not in harmony with her, and if they're not connected in that space of universal oneness and the essence of being, and then with the personal dharma coming through, there's a chance for things to keep going like they're going. And we're not getting there. We're just not getting there. And there's the opportunity that we still can. So this is the year of 2021. There are different ways that I work with people, but the easiest way, if you're not incredibly called and not really in a transition time, then I would suggest having a one-on-one call. But to go into the class and to just go through, and there's different ways to do that. There's no one that would be left out of that in terms of financially, and that will also explained in the first class. So if you're so inclined to go right into the class, that would be where you would go. And if you're so inclined to read a little more and watch a little bit more and understand some of the going into these 5 levels of consciousness and the transition times and some of the ways and things that have been happening for me over these years since this book was written almost 20 years ago. There's more on that, but you can also just go right into the class, and would love to have you, and more will be explained as time goes on. So it's not over yet, but we are in a transition year, and it's very important to be in a, what's coming in is like, wow, we kind of missed the boat last time, and now there's still opportunity. We're still here, and in some ways hanging by a thread, and things are not turning into this open space where there are some signs maybe that this bigger awakening is happening, but most of it is really in a space of it's gone more into an economic space, and it's gone more into a let's play it in kind of a safe zone and make sure that we're okay, and we're okay, really okay. And you want to be also okay spiritually. And if you're really not bringing your gift, this is a thing that's not really talked about. It's like if you have a gift and a dharma and you're refusing to bring it, and you're not bringing it, and you're ignoring the call, and you're using lots of either spiritual practices or things to just keep you going, but you're not bringing your gift, and that awakening is not happening, then there's also karma for that. If you have a karma to bring something, if you're blocking someone else, if you're blocking yourself, and if you're participating in that willingly, then that's not a space, that's not a safe space, right, spiritually. So you want to be delivering your gift. You want to be, especially in this year, times of change, going for it, because we have the support again of another time of a potentially huge transition, which has a 22, and that's the builder, the number, and the 1 is the individual number, but it's a 5, and 5 is change. So we want the change to be the inner explosion in the beautiful way, and not some outer explosion in a way that we don't want. So we want the inner explosion of that awakened presence. and that inner event where we're remembering who we are and why we're here, and there's different ways that it's been said, having the Spirit of God come upon us. But it's not so much a singular religion or one way. It's something that gets activated and your heart opens up, and it's very much in the heart space, very much connecting with the feminine. And so that's part of the Living Beyond Belief class, and then we just go from there. And wherever you are called, there's a lot more to come as it's revealing itself. All right, so blessings, and thank you so much for listening. And again, would love to participate with you if you are so called.